So you also mentioned about structural barriers. So I just wanted to bring that up. The structural barriers will consist of gender stereotypes, discrimination, lack of institutional as well as infrastructural support, and we will also have barriers such as religion, religious identity, caste, class. So when you talk about judicial orders and judgments, how far can a judicial order and judgment they can create an environment, a system wherein these barriers can be eliminated, or is there something more that needs to be done?
Well, courts, as I would like to share with everyone present here, perform three critical functions, not just that one question or one function of deciding cases. The first and the most important function of courts in a democratic society like ours, governed by the rule of law, is the cases which we decide. But there's something far more subtle and more important which is going on in the process which we must understand. Courts have become important platforms for social engagement, not just for the verdicts which we deliver, but for the fact that we create a space for reasoned dialogue between diverse segments of society, between cross-sections of viewpoints. That's the second important aspect of courts. And the third, which is a less known fact, is the work which we do in our administrative capacities. So the work which we as judges do in our administrative capacities is extremely crucial. For instance, I'd like to share with you just one thing that we have been doing of recent times. One of the critical barriers to understanding the court process or to access to justice is language. The Supreme Court of India conducts all its proceedings in English. And the Constitution did so for a valid reason, which was that in a country where you have 22 languages recognized by the Constitution, you have diverse judges coming from different parts of the country. For instance, I don't know whether I belong to Maharashtra because thereafter I grew up in Delhi, I was born in Maharashtra, I served as Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, so I'm equally attached to UP. But I'm sitting with a colleague who comes from Gujarat, another colleague who comes from Uttar Pradesh. So we are diverse segments of society, diverse regions that we come from. But English was therefore construed by the constitution makers as one central language which could bind the institution together. But that's not the language in which people speak. And therefore that means that we are not able to reach out to people in languages which they understand across India. So one of the key things that we have been doing over the last 1 year since I took over as Chief Justice of India is that we have been in the process of translating all the judgments of the Supreme Court. There are 34,000 judgments of the Supreme Court since independence. And we are using machine learning. We have been using AI-assisted tools such as the Bhashini software or the Suhas software which has been prepared for the Supreme Court. For translating, we have today about 34,000 judgments, 31,000 judgments translated in various Indian languages. The idea is that courts must reach out to people. And in that sense, we must open up our processes so people understand what goes on in our courts. COVID was a game changer for us because most of our work had to be done on a video conferencing platform. Well, that was a necessity during COVID times, but there have been huge positives from our learning curve in COVID. One of the things which we learned in COVID times when we were on the video conferencing platform was that more women are arguing cases in court just because they don't have to waste the whole day in court waiting for their cases to reach. Women, as I said, perform multifold responsibilities. So it's far more efficient for a woman to be on a video conferencing platform than physically present in the court. We have begun live streaming our court proceedings. I'm sure a lot of you, a good friend told me recently when we were doing the hearings in the same-sex marriage equality case, he says, watching your proceedings was better than watching a Netflix movie at the end of the day. But the idea of live streaming court proceedings really is to allow for people to understand what goes on in court. And I do believe that this is part of the process of confidence building, of ensuring that people for whom we really are intended to serve have an element of trust in the work which we do. Sometimes the work is very boring in the court, but they must know that, citizens' small grievances, whether it's about pension, whether it's about, the termination of a job, whether it's the implementation of industrial settlement or a tax reassessment order, occupies the same serious time of the court as any other big ticket case which you read about in the newspapers. So live streaming is one of the measures which we have taken. As I said, translation of our judgments which we have done. We are now also providing for transcription of court proceedings using, again, AI-assisted tools. So, for instance, in the more important cases before the Constitution bench, we've just concluded judgment. We have just concluded the arguments in, say, the Article 370 case. The marriage equality case ended in a judgment. We've got so many different judgments which are now in the process of being considered. So, we are allowing for transcription. So, simultaneously that a lawyer makes an argument, the entire transcript is almost instantaneously prepared. At the end of the day, it's uploaded on the website of the Supreme Court. So the idea behind doing this is to create a greater degree of transparency and accountability in the work of the court. Recently I had a case where a hearing impaired lawyer said that, well, I want to argue in the case, but I can't argue unless you provide me with a sign language interpreter. So we opened up our space for sign language interpretation as well, for providing access to simple things, and these are some of the low-hanging fruit. For instance, for those who are visually impaired, most of our websites rely on visual capture, which means that they cannot access our websites. So we have tweaked our electronic software, our websites, to ensure that we are more available for people who are visually impaired. One of my own law clerks, who was a Rhodes Scholar, gave me sort of suggestions, and we have implemented that. We've also, in the last year, I had an accessibility audit conducted of the Supreme Court. And the idea of the audit was to understand our courts is the highest court of the nation, truly accessible to senior citizens, to pregnant women, to the queer community, to the marginalized groups, to women in general. It was chaired by a judge of the Supreme Court. I've just got the report a few days before the judge retired, and we are in the process of implementing it. And I hope that we can do that in future as well.